Hi, Jeanne.
Hi, fancy meeting you here. Hi, everybody. How is everybody? Good? Did you have coffee and a good lunch and everything? So we're going to talk about a couple things. And I want to start by welcoming Laurie. She's a very busy person. Anybody ever hear of Pacific Gas and Electric?
Small company. Yeah.
Small little place. We're going to talk about the importance of uniting an organization, which doesn't happen organically. And there's several market conditions that have made this role of Chief Customer Officer, many times united with the CMO role, which is what Laurie is doing, important in the marketplace and becoming to take hold. The first one is in the last economic downturn, for the first time, and I've been doing this work since 1984, for the first time since 1984, we haven't had to prove the importance between keeping existing customers over acquiring new customers. The second thing, and the second forcing function that I'm so grateful for, and I know you are too, Laurie, is social media. You can run, but you can't hide. Customer experience is the operating answer to your brand. And your customers are going to be out in the world telling the experience that you deliver. And they say three things. Did you do what you say you're going to do? Were you reliable? And how did you make me feel? Right, Laurie? How did you make me feel? And the final thing that's happening that's really driving this role is that CEOs and leaders, after all these years of saying to their companies, go be customer-centric, realize that it can't happen organically inside of silo-driven operations. We are by design, and you know this inside of PG&E, we are this by design driven by building operational areas of expertise. People are working hard, but they're all working hard separately. And as a result, the experience we deliver to our customers is very random. Anybody ever call an airline twice in a row? Right? Oh, I snort when I laugh. Sorry about that.
And I worked at an airline.
And you worked in an airline, yeah. I started my career at Land's End, and Land's End is in Wisconsin. I think I spent too much time with the pigs, so sorry about that. Oh, see, now I did it again. Okay, poor Laurie. Okay, so here's the deal about the airline. The deal about the airline, it's like service roulette, right, Laurie?
Oh, yeah.
Ring, 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 ring. You call, and somebody answers the phone, and it's a great woman or man, but they're a policy cop. And they're going to tell you everything you did wrong, why you're kind of dopey for booking on the wrong day, even though you meant to go the day after. And you hang up the phone, and for me, it's like, okay, thank you very much, click. And then I dial again and hope for something different. And the next time, we may get somebody who's been there for a long time, and they know how to navigate the ins and outs of the system, and they help you, and you feel better. But what you still get delivered to you is an it depends experience, right, Laurie? It depends on the person, it depends on the day, it depends on the channel. That is not reliability. And what Laurie's been really working on at Pacific Gas and Electric in her role is changing the operating model. So let's talk about that, Laurie. How do we move, and how have you moved the organization from delivering from a silo-based standpoint to deliver this deliberate, reliable experience?
So how many of you felt that little earthquake this morning? I think it happened about 7 a.m. Anybody feel one at 11:50 last night? Okay, so my husband would be happy to know that somebody else felt it as well. So we had this little earthquake this morning, and I was having a cup of coffee with my husband in our home. We live on the peninsula here in the Bay Area, and it was a jolt. We have a home that was built in the 20s, and the jolt happens, and we both have grown up here, so we've been through Loma Prieta and then the Napa earthquake, and my husband says, what were you thinking about? And I'm like, are the kids awake, and can we get them out of the house? And I said, what were you thinking about? And he's like, God, I hope the house doesn't fall down. And this weekend, we were, interestingly enough, up in Napa, and we're just about at the 1-year anniversary of the Napa earthquake. And last year, just about this time, actually in about a week, we had a 6.0 earthquake that hit Napa, really rocked Napa. And, if you happen to have had an appointment at Silver Oak the next day, you probably got a call that you weren't going to be going to Silver Oak because all of their barrels fell over, tanks lifted off the ground and were crushed. And the downtown of Napa was really, really severely damaged. And at that moment, we had 70,000 customers that were out of service. Now, across PG&E's service territory, we've got almost 10 million customers. And so you say, oh, 70,000, what's the big deal about that? But when a major disaster happens, it's really about how you show up in that moment.
That's
and of course, social media is lit up everywhere because, where did the earthquake happen? In Napa Valley. And so, we have a protocol where we start to execute around a structure for emergencies. And it's always, kind of the best time in our company because you see everybody coming together in this unified experience all around serving customers. And Napa was a great example of how we showed up really well. Within 24 hours, we had all 70,000 customers back up and operational. Within 24 hours, we also had a full team of customer employees on the ground, walking the streets of Napa, going to every single business, doing outreach, ensuring we've got them back up and serviced. And then we had customer employees with our gas team out walking the streets of Napa. Now, people think of Napa and they think about the wineries and the wealth that's there. But there's a whole section of Napa where all the employees that serve the wineries live and work. And so we opened up our mobile command unit with the Red Cross to really serve all of those customers as well. And it was just a great example of coming together with the community, but then watching our employees. And in that moment, we had employees, frontline employees, 30-year employees that are union-based employees. And I'm telling you, they got, glass picked up at their house. They weren't even on schedule, and they all came in. So it was just, I was at an event this weekend, and the host of the event was commenting that, kind of in this hour of despair, where you think you're in this very small environment where everything is disrupted, it was a sea of blue and white trucks coming roaring into town.
So there's a couple things that Laurie mentioned that I think are important to think about, and as we do this work, these are really things that need to resonate. A lot of companies, like you said, especially companies with large, vast numbers of customers, we think about customers in percentages or rates, and Laurie said the whole number, 70,000, and the importance of that is 70,000 human lives, 70,000 families. The way that we drive change inside of organizations is to get leaders and the people on the street to really imagine the life and to serve the life rather than thinking about the spreadsheet and the numeric. And so I really applaud your use of that whole number, because if more companies did that, I think we'd have more change take action. One of the things I'd encourage you to do as you start to try to move your own business, and Laurie, we've talked about this, is something I call customer math. Help your leaders do simple math. How many new customers did you bring in volume and value? That's great. That's your acquisition number. You may have brought 20,000 new in, right, Laurie? But how many did you lose in that same quarter or month or year? If you brought in 50,000 and you lost 40,000, you're just standing still. You're not incrementally gaining or building your customer base. And what happened? Why did this erosion of the customer base happen? A lot of companies will jump to retention rates, but that gives you a false positive. So thank you for that. That was one of the first important things. The other thing that Laurie mentioned, and I want to chat with you a little bit more about this, is this whole thing of really uniting the whole organization across the silos. When these things happen, if it hadn't been for the human duct tape here, it would have been probably a silo-based response. So let's talk a little bit more about what you had to do to wire all of that together.
So at PG&E, we really have a foundation of how things come together, and the genesis of that is really around the use of good data. So we know a lot about our customers. We not only know their demographics, where they live, but we know all of their behavior. So we have our customers mapped to personas. So we really understand our customers, and our employees, our 22,000 employees, not only serve those customers, but they live and work in those service territories. And so a couple of years ago, as we stepped back and took a look at this vast service territory, that's 70,000 square miles, and lots of cool things happening. Energy is the cool business to be in, if you didn't already know this. A lot of new entrants to the market with different types of generating models. So customers are looking for, alternatives. Do I put solar panels on my home? Do I have Tesla battery storage? Do I purchase an EV? But at the end of the day, what they really expect from us is that, when they turn something on, it's operating. And we kind of think about that as being the grid of things, right? Like the Internet of Things. You know, you can't operate the Internet of Things without the grid of things. And so we've really been focusing on how do we how do we help our employees really think about, there's a customer behind everything that we do. And so we use survey data to survey our customers, but that also gives us that information from a geography standpoint so our employees can really be focused. I was with some of our electric technicians last week, and there was an argument and debate going on around who owns the customer. And they said, well, I'm really in charge of the customer experience. And these are linemen that are out servicing our customers. But one of the things we did do in order to really bring people together is we created this model around what we call division leadership teams. So at a very local level in our communities, we have 19 of these leaders across that are all customer leaders. They bring together, we matrix the organization, and they lead our electric, gas, and generation teams so that we show up as one PG&E. Because in our communities, if we're doing infrastructure work, and we invest tremendous amount in the infrastructure of California, if we don't show up as one and we're routing traffic throughout a city on top of each other, it's a terrible customer experience. So our division leadership teams have really played a key role in that.
So I want to talk about that in a minute, but I know people in this room are really curious about enabling technology and the investments that you've made. And what we know in this work, everybody in the room, I know you're anxious about this, but what we find is a lot of times technology inadvertently follows the customer journey or the customer experience, and the job we find is getting ahead of it to inform by stage of the journey, what are we going to enable? Right? Versus putting cool technology into place and saying, well, what can that do? So let's talk to the folks here about the investments you've made and kind of how that's informed the business.
So one of the key investments, as we've been looking at our cost profile, because like all good businesses, we're constantly looking for where those opportunities to bend the cost curve internally. Because unlike other businesses, our customers fund how we operate. That's how the utility model works. So we're constantly looking for ways to reduce that cost profile so as not to put that cost back on our customers. So using all of our data that we have around our customers and actually going to our customers, conducting, nothing that you all don't already do around focus groups. We really look to develop what are those types of service delivery models that customers want to engage in. Interestingly enough, and of no new news to this group, but what we found was that our customers had shifted radically. So in 2008, across our service territory, our customers fell into these persona buckets. And we had roughly about 30% are what we would consider a way-wired customer, meaning a wired home that they're using digital technology. Well, as of last year, that number was well over 55%. And we had other personas coming into the mix. So personas, I don't know about you, but I have an 80-year-old aunt. She pays everything online. She's a Facebooker. She tweets. She's all over it.
My mother texts.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we start to create a service model so that customers don't only have to call us to engage with us or walk into a location to engage with us, but we also knew we didn't want to boil the ocean. So we used this data and we focused on the key priorities for customers and
in
those
their
transactions in their lives and the transactions they were doing with us most frequently. And then we took those transactions to customers and actually did usability testing and let them design it. And so rather than build a bunch of mobile apps as a result of the work, we ended up mobilizing our website and creating a more responsive design model. And as a result of that, we've taken millions of dollars out of traditional channels. We've improved customer satisfaction. And what we're providing customers really is choice and control. So they're in control of how they engage with a utility, which is a very different model. But we also know that our customers don't compare themselves to other utilities. Yeah. They compare themselves to the businesses that they do business with on a regular basis.
Yeah. And do you want to share anything about the investment dollars or give anybody a...
Well, to give you perspective, we invest $5 billion a year in core infrastructure, so in pipes and wires. We invested about $30 million in this technology stack for our customers, and we've made that up in 18 months. The business case is it's about 1.5 times what we've spent and growing.
Yeah. So our last conversation, and then if we have time, we're going to open up to some questions, is what Laurie describes as the people who you meet on the street. They call them the people in the air and the people on the street, the guys and the women in the polls and those that enter homes and read meters.
Yep.
How do you take all that? That's great at the executive level and everything, but how does that become how people behave differently?
So I think I mentioned that I was at this division meeting and there was great debate as to who owned the customer experience. So there's customer people on this team, but really the electric and gas team feel as though, if they're in the home or they are re-energizing a home, that they own the customer experience, which is really amazing. But you have to create structure around that. And so we've been really focused with how do we structure the work, how do we line up the work, how do we ensure that the silos, if you will, that would traditionally exist in our organization are really working together. And then we layered on top of that. So we've created this community-based organizational structure. And then in addition to that, we've layered up a whole brand campaign on top of that. So we have about 45 spots running across California now, showcasing the work our employees do in the communities in which they live and work.
So what's something that somebody's doing differently now when they enter a home, for example, that they weren't doing before?
So we were always really good at entering the home. I would say that where we weren't as good was coordinating the work. So as an example, we might be doing infrastructure work in front of a school.
And when you say infrastructure work?
So it could be laying pipe, it could be working on transmission lines, and we weren't as focused on what that experience is going to be for the parents who had to drop off the kids or for the neighbors in the area, and how it might be when they need to get in and out of their driveway.
So you were really good at doing the work, but not necessarily thinking about the other people who were affected by it.
And so we've put customer teams in front of the work and the investment work that we're doing, and they're out, they hold town halls, they hold meetings with city councils, but more importantly, they're engaging with customers through digital marketing, through media opportunities, as well as kind of the good old-fashioned door-to-door when we need to.
Right.
And that really then enables our customers to understand the work that we're doing and understand how we're going to work with them to ensure that we minimally disrupt them.
Got it. We've got time for maybe one question. Does somebody have a question? There's a hand right here.
I'm just wondering what that you invested in the technology stack. With the, if you could talk to the technologies that you invested in, maybe not specifically the brands or the names, but what types?
So we did a complete overhaul of our contact centers. So we have 5 contact centers in California. So we moved to a voice over IP stack. We changed out all of our IVR technology, and then we completely uplifted our entire web experience. We already had the marketing stack, and we already had the all of the data analytics. So we had that platform and that infrastructure with all of our data housed. It was more upgrading really the front-facing customer systems.
Was it hard to convince people to make that investment?
It actually wasn't, because the business case was so compelling. We weren't going out to do 20 transactions. We really focused on 8 key transactions, and in year 1, they drove a $15 million ROI. So the business case was there, and if you can shift an $11 call with a live agent to pennies on the dollar with a web transaction that customers feel good about and continue to engage that way, those are investments that pay for themselves all the time.
And that's the key too, is that we know that this can't be kumbaya or nice to have work. This is the work about how you will and will not grow. So one of the things that people like Laurie know is when you propose a solution or an experience improvement, you've got to connect the dots to how that will and will not grow.
I would also say that for us, our bonus structure is such that 15% of our total bonus for all leaders at PG&E is based on the customer experience. That's almost on par with our financials. So, that has brought folks to the really to the front of being very focused on the customer. So I do believe that if you align your metrics the right way, that really aligns the organization as well.
People go where they smell the green, as I like to say.
And that's okay if it's all about the customer.
Yep. Well, we'd like to thank you for your time and spending a little bit about it with us today. I do have a few of this new book I'm carrying around with me. If you find me and you want one, I'll hand one back to you. But most importantly, thank you to Laurie for taking a lot of her time today to be with us.
And thanks, Jeanne.
Thanks, everybody.